Go Jackets.
Good afternoon, and welcome to WreckTalk. So, let's talk about the draft. Now, before we get into that, if you haven't seen my interview with 31-year veteran SEC official Gus Morris, definitely go check that out. Live show we did last Friday. But yeah, if you read the AJC article, the only Georgia Tech player that was drafted was Keon White at 46 overall to New England. Now, I would have liked to seen him gone in the first round. I think he's a very talented kid. But, that he was on our team and we had done so poorly and still got picked up in the second round, I think is a testament to the skill of Keon White, kid that we picked up in the transfer portal from Old Dominion. He was also a kid that like LSU and Alabama were going after when we got him out of the portal. But it is interesting, and I don't know if it's uncommon for players that aren't first-round picks to not have any pre-draft communication with the team, but he did say he didn't have any communication with New England prior to them picking him with the 15th pick in the second round. And if you look at the draft video, or a video of him when he was picked, like he seemed pretty stoic. Like he didn't have really any reaction. He just kind of stood there with his arms crossed. But look, Tech players have done well at New England. Shaq Mason played under Paul. I think has 2 Super Bowl rings with New England. Now, time will tell whether New England's success was a Bill Belichick thing or a Tom Brady thing. Right now, evidence shows that it seemed to be far more a Tom Brady thing than a Belichick thing. But I think Belichick's a fantastic coach, and he'll get New England going in the right direction. And I certainly hope so for Keon's sake. Now, I count Jahmyr Gibbs as a Georgia Tech draftee. I know he transferred to Alabama, but he was only there for 1 year. He was at Tech the vast majority of his career, and shouted out Tech up to him being drafted and after just as much as he did Alabama, and particularly he spoke really highly of Tashard Choice, which still leaves a sour taste in my mouth that we couldn't. I don't think there's any chance that Choice comes back to Tech unless he's offered like an OC position. And interestingly enough, Choice also coached what's the kid with Bijan out of Texas. I don't remember his last name, but yeah, he had 2 kids he had coached that went top 12 in the draft, which really speaks, I think, to how great of a running back coach Tashard Choice is. Choice was a guy that had a very good career at Georgia Tech, and surprisingly to me, had a really good career in the NFL as well. I mean, he started for Dallas for a number of years. So, I don't know. Maybe one day he'll find his way back to the flats. But I will say I kind of hate to see Gibbs go to the Lions. I will never forgive them for what they did to Calvin Johnson. Calvin Johnson, arguably the greatest wide receiver of all time. I mean, this is a guy that if you just built a wide receiver, in Madden and maxed his stats out, you would get Calvin Johnson. 6'5", 4'3", 5'40", like 48-inch vertical, fantastic hands, great route running. And basically ruined his career for clearing him to play hurt when he wasn't ready to play. And if you've listened to interviews that Calvin's given, like he said, basically he found out, hey, these doctors work for the team and their interests don't necessarily align with the player. So he retires, early. I think did they have one playoff win his whole time he was with the Lions? I think so. I mean, definitely a kid that deserved, I think, a whole lot better than what he got. So maybe the lines are drastically different than they were at the time. I kind of don't necessarily think so. I mean, you look at Matt Stafford gets a trade out of there, wins a Super Bowl the next year, so something ain't right in for the Lions. But I hope that they have unprecedented success. I mean, they drafted Hendon Hooker, I think, out of Tennessee as well. So maybe they'll get it turned around. I hope so for Gibbs' sake. But really proud of that kid. Like that a lot that you have a running back go that high in the draft is really cool, and it's really cool that he was a Tech guy. Now we did so the prospects we had obviously were Keon, Charlie Thomas, Ace Ely, EJ Jenkins, and Malachi Carter at wide receiver. So Charlie Thomas does get picked up as an unsigned player with Cleveland, and surprising to me was Hassan Hall also get picked up by Cleveland. Now he's a kid that had some had some really good games with us, but was not a kid that I really saw NFL talent from at running back. But gets picked up by Cleveland, so best of luck to him. EJ Jenkins gets picked up by the Jets, so I guess he'll, if he gets to play any, will be catching balls from Aaron Rodgers. And that's something that I think we really misused EJ Jenkins. This is a guy that's 6'7", playing on a team that has a huge vacancy of good play at the tight end position. Like, why we didn't have him playing tight end, I'll never know. But maybe he's a kid that, like Darren Waller, can really, shine in the NFL where he didn't necessarily have, a ton of success in college. Now, heartbreaking to me is I don't see Ely got picked up. I think Ely does have NFL talent. Maybe he'll get invited to a camp and make a team. I would love to see that. He composed this killer linebacker duo of him and Thomas. Now we've brought in Andre White and Braylon Oliver, the kid from Rutgers. His name escapes me. But both of those kids, White and Oliver, I believe only have 1 year of eligibility. So we're going to be in the same situation next year, really trying to have kids step up at linebacker. And who knows, maybe a younger kid steps up as well. But Thomas is a kid that I think could really be a diamond in a rough, and in 4 years from now, people are saying, man, how did no one take this kid in the draft? I just think he's really talented. He is undersized, but he just always, wherever the ball is, you're going to find Thomas on defense. Whenever the ball's on the grass, he always finds a way to pick up with it. He always finds a way to come up with a big play when you absolutely need one. So I think he's a great addition to your team. And this really speaks to a larger problem at Tech, that if we're going to really step up in recruiting and start really progressing as a program the way that Tech fans would like them to, we've got to show out better in the draft. That's a huge recruiting tool. Like, if you notice, Nick Saban was at the draft, Kirby Smart's at the draft, because they have a ton of players going, and they use that as a recruiting mechanism. Like, hey, if you come play for us, look at all these kids we're putting out in the draft. Something that we've definitely got to do better on, and that really breaks down into position groups. So when you're recruiting at linebacker, like Georgia's put out a ton of linebackers, Alabama's put out a ton of linebackers early in the draft. It really helps you land those positions. So, like I said, we really got to step up there. But I do think we have things in place. Scherer is a guy that spent time as a DC in the SEC, and has NFL experience. I think that's definitely going to help. Marco Coleman, a guy that I think was drafted 12th overall, spent a ton of time in the NFL as a coach. We have him on staff, also has a national title ring. Kevin Sherrer has a national title ring with Alabama. We're not going to talk about where Buster got his rings from, but look, there's a ton of guys on this staff that have the ability to really catapult Tech into a good spot. And competing for national titles is not on my radar. We talked about it on the last live show. There's a lot of things that have to happen on an institutional level at Tech, I think, for us to compete on that level. But us competing for our conference is definitely within grasp, and I think even within grasp next year. I mean, we definitely need to be in the top third of the conference to really recruit like we need to next year and get the wheels turning. So tell me what you think. What do you think about Tech's draft? What do you think about the direction that Tech is going? Check us out Sunday on the next live show. Call in, tell us what you think. See you guys soon.